Busoni's love affair with Bach started with transcriptions. Transcriptions were easy for him because at the time, this is how Bach tended to be performed, right? People wrote their own transcriptions. How they wrote them is a different business altogether. So let's look at these first. The transcription I'd like to look at is the one for which we love Busoni the most, and that's a transcription of the great violin Chaconne. So the Chaconne, of course, is a marvelous masterpiece and has a history that should probably be mentioned, at least a little. So we know Bach was married twice. He lost his first wife, Maria Barbara, quite suddenly when he was out of town looking for a job, as Bach spent a lot of time doing. He basically came home to find Maria Barbara quite dead, and his many, many children being taken care of by, relatives and neighbors. Bach was in shock. Bach was desperately upset, as you can imagine. Here's the problem with despair. Remember that Bach was such a devout Lutheran that he saw everything in his world through the eyes of his faith. And despair is equivalent to lack of trust in God. So Bach was simultaneously in despair over losing his beloved wife and in despair over these questions of faith. So he worked out his feelings in this marvelous composition, this marvelous masterpiece, the Chaconne. So beautiful is this piece that it had been transcribed literally dozens and dozens of times. Here's just a very, very short list of keyboard transcriptions of it that are available. So, of course, everybody can transcribe anything for anything. It's the question of how you do it. But so let's talk about the issues of transcribing violin music to a keyboard. We learn, as did Busoni, everything we need to know from Bach himself, who transcribed dozens, literally dozens of violin works for harpsichord. All those marvelous concertos by Vivaldi, Corelli, Torelli, and so many more, which eventually led to Bach writing the Italian Concerto. But then he transcribed multiple violin concertos as his double concertos for harpsichord, the triple and the quadruple concerto, which are all just so marvelous. So we learn a lot of important techniques from them. But there are several problems in transcribing violin music to the piano. Problem number one is that violin is essentially a one-note instrument. Yeah, they play double, triple stops, whatever. But for the most part, they play one note at a time. We pianists hopefully stop doing that around like our third piano lesson, right? Hopefully. Another big issue is that a violinist, a good violinist, at least in theory, can keep a sound going by changing bows imperceptibly forever, right? On the piano, sadly, any note we play dies a fairly quick and miserable death because ours is a percussion instrument. So all of these things need to be dealt with, and how different composers deal with them tells us everything we need to know. So I will show you Busoni's transcription, bits of Busoni's transcription, and compare it to transcriptions of other people, other inferior people, so that you can tell the difference. Okay, so we're going to start with one of the early variations, and I chose a performance by Jascha Heifetz, well, because I like it, also because he sits right, like, historically in the middle of this period that we're talking about, and his playing is very romantic, but extremely respectful of the style. How gorgeous, right? Well, interestingly, the Romantics didn't think he was gorgeous, like not at all, because a whole bunch of them wrote an accompaniment to this. Schumann did and Mendelssohn did. So I'm going to play you the Mendelssohn accompaniment I'm just gonna work the melody into, hopefully, so you hear what's going on. Interesting, right? But we have to ask ourselves, what's wrong with it? The harmonies are okay, right? But it just sounds so incredibly wrong to the modern ear. And the reason for that is this particular accompaniment is purely homophonic in style. It is melody and accompaniment. This is not how Bach thinks. This is not how Bach writes, right? So here is Busoni's much superior version. That is much better. So we have to ask ourselves again, why? What is it that Busoni adds? Because you have to add to a violin version, do you know? What Busoni adds are chords which follow the chaconne rhythm. This is not the foreign element. This is what the chaconne is all about. This is exactly what Bach would do in his own violin transcriptions. Let's listen to another variation. Well, here's the chaconne rhythm right there. Okay, so we're gonna need Anthony's help again. With extreme beauty. I mean, I hear this all the time, and it just reduces me to tears. It's that sort of music. So, the transcription of that, to put it bits up, is by a Swiss pianist and composer, Joachim Raff. He was very respected during his day, and this particular transcription of the chaconne was very popular in its day indeed, performed a great deal, and I actually just recently saw it on a recital program somewhere. It is pianistic, it is very difficult, it is quite brilliant, it sucks. You're about to sing it. Okay, so I'm going to play you this particular variation. So let's see what's wrong with it. So there are a large number of things that are wrong with it. First of all, that whole pulsating thing is just cheap and annoying. But worse than that, those crazy dynamics that you heard, those I mean, yes, granted, I exaggerated them a little bit, but they're in the score. Why are they in the score? We don't know, but here they are. And then there's the new element that he adds, which is kind of like the chaconne rhythm, but not really. So again, a foreign element. And then there's the feeling like everything is moving in the same direction, and so it creates a homophonic feeling again. Okay, well, let's compare it to what Ferruccio Busoni does. Yeah, so why does that work? The new material moves in contrary motion to Bach's original melody. That's what Bach does. And the new elements that are being added are once again the chaconne rhythm and the chaconne harmony. So this is why this is so successful. Did you notice, however, that Busoni does take some interesting liberties here? He basically does the variation twice by switching the hands around. Have you noticed that Bach does that in every Invention, Sinfonia, and Fugue? So, and in the dance suites and everywhere else. This is a completely organically Baroque device, and something that Bach, I'm sure, would have approved if he could see it, because we've got two hands and they both have to have the beautiful stuff. Right? Okay, so let's do another very special variation. Here's Jascha Haas. A very cool thing. This is what the music actually looks like for the violin. It's basically a series of chords for the violinist to elaborate on in any way that they wish. And they usually go across all four strings to create that wonderful overtone sort of feel all around. So this is difficult to transcribe for the piano because the piano doesn't do that. So let's start by looking at what Brahms does. So the Brahms transcription of the chaconne is played all the time. And many very highly respected pianists have been on my case about playing the Busoni one and not the Brahms one, because of course the Brahms is true to the score. It's true to the score in the sense that it is not a transcription. It is just a rewriting, almost note for note, of Bach's original score. What Brahms does to deal with the problem of sustain that we discussed earlier is he moves the whole thing from the violin register one octave lower to the cello register, where the piano is much richer and more velvety, and where sustain is much longer. So that's helpful. And of course, famously, Bach changes, or at least Bach writes the whole thing for just the left hand alone. So with the right hand not involved, left hand is busy enough, for the most part. But otherwise, with a very few extra additional notes, Brahms treats the score as Holy Writ and just moves it down an octave, as I said. So here's his solution to that interesting variation of the arpeggiated violin. So As I said, Bach transcriptions for left hand will look, but since I have a mini hand, I can't reach anything, it's kind of for two hands for me. Not going to throw any shade on Brahms here. You did good. But Busoni did much better. So let's listen to this. Fascinating is that? How absolutely magical. How do you need to know and understand the nature of our instrument to be able to create this amazing sound of a violin going across all four strings? It's also really quite hard, but worth the pain because oh my God, such beauty. Okay, so last example for today. So as I mentioned, the chaconne is really a working out of Bach's feeling of pain and despair. And in the middle of the movement, we go from D minor, the key of death, to our triumphant D major. Right? It's really the emotional high point. And here's Heifetz doing his thing. We're back to Joachim Raff. So here's Raff doing his thing. It's hard to even list all the things that are offensive and annoying about this. First, what's this? I mean, this is vulgar. I mean, this is absolutely terrible. What happened to our triumphant feeling of overcoming? I mean, the whole thing is just somebody having palpitations. That is not Bach. So, here is Busoni's version. Now, do you notice that Busoni completely gives up on imitating the violin here and creates that organ sonority for which he is so renowned?